Hey man, look at that, Learned a little OBS stuff today. I did like chunk, whatever. I did put more into the IRA here, and it was uh it was nice. It was something. I mean, it was just a little bit, but let me see if I can turn on my cursor. I don't know if you can see my cursor. That's a shame. Well, it doesn't look like my cursor is on top in this scenario. But anyway, um, yeah, put more money into it, and it does what it does. There's how do you know that many shares? Coincidentally, like at this point, this number lines up with this number almost. You know, So that's wonderful. I did say that eventually this would skyrocket and shoot up. So if you think about what a percentage weighting means, you know, um, it means that our portfolio, by our, I mean mine and whoever the beneficiary of this thing is, uh, it'll start to act more like this. In fact, if you think about it, right? It'll act like that 72.6% of the time. It'll act like this line. Line has a 72.6% influence over this line. And that's a wonderful idea because the more you know about the influence of what what's going on here, the more you can tailor that to what's over here. Eventually, at some point, something like 98, 99% of the influence on this line will essentially be SPLG. It's coming within the month that uh, the options are going to start being sold on the account. And right now, this line is very, very stable. It keeps growing every day. I mean, it is quite literally one of the smoothest graphs I've ever seen in my entire life. Uh, but when the uh, when the big deposit gets here, that will change dramatically and quickly and meaningfully. The volatility that is going to be seen closer to the end of this month makes this look like absolute chump change. Um, this line looks all big at the moment, and that's because Robinhood just isn't. It doesn't have a whole lot of data to go off of. I mean, it you can tell when I was putting in money here and getting the match back. I mean, I was seriously just chucking tiny amounts, 3, 5 something dollars, not very much. But when the volatility starts and the big deposit gets here, this line will essentially it will look so small. The volatility will just dwarf this entire line because 2.1%, especially when you're working with derivatives, is not a big fluctuation over a less than a month period, much less a day. They're incredibly volatile things. So this 2.1%, it could go to -10, it could go to +20, it could go to -30. This line will be absolutely dwarfed soon. But while I'm still watching it and while it's still here, this this 72.6% influence is such a wonderful thing. And Nvidia's having a hard time recently. Poor guy. Poor fella. Just not really invested in Nvidia in any meaningful way, not directly, only through the broader S&P, but you know, I'm kind of praying for the downfall. I've had shorts on Nvidia since February, and I don't know what Nvidia was at February, but I have a I have an options play that will pay disproportionately if Nvidia falls and becomes incredibly volatile. Right about in here is when I placed the short, and I basically expected to burn that money for a while. I mean, this drop off is happening quicker than I even anticipated. I entirely didn't feel like this was gonna be the major downfall, and I expected this to run much more back in February. But uh, you know, however that trade pans out, that'll be wonderful, right? If volatility actually raises. Anyway, that's it. You know, that's all there is. That's I'll read you a little something from Peter Lynch. How about that? One subsection. I'll start on the chapter 9. The Wall Street oxymorons. To the list of famous oxymorons, military intelligence, learned professor, deafening silence, and jumbo shrimp, I'd add professional investing. It's important for amateurs to view the profession with a properly skeptical eye. At least you'll realize whom you're up against. Since 70% of the shares in major companies are controlled by institutions, it's increasingly likely that you're competing against oxymorons whenever you buy or sell shares. This is a lucky break for you. Given the, given the numerous cultural, legal, and social barriers that restrain professional investors, many of which we've nailed up ourselves, it's amazing that we've done as well as we have as a group. Of course, not all professionals are oxymoronic. There are great fund managers, innovative fund managers, and maverick fund managers who invest as they please. John Templeton is one of the best. He is a pioneer in the global market, one of the first to make money all around the world. His shareholders avoided the 1972 to 74 collapse in the US because he had cleverly placed most of his fund's assets in Canadian and Japanese stocks. Not only that, he was one of the first to take advantage of the fact the Japanese Dow Jones, the Nikkei average, I don't know, Nikkei is up 17-fold from 1966 to 1988, while the US Dow Jones has only doubled. Max Hine, now deceased, at Mutual Shares Fund was another ingenious freethinker. His protege, Michael Price, who took over after Hine's death, has continued the tradition of buying asset-rich companies at 50 cents on the dollar and then waiting for the marketplace to pay the full amount. He's done a brilliant job. John Neff is a champion investor in out-of-favor stocks, for which he's consistently sticking his neck out. Ken Hebner at Loomis Sales sticks his neck out too, and the results have been remarkable. Peter DeRoth is another friend who has done extremely well with small stocks. DeRoth is a Harvard Law graduate who developed an incredible and incurable passion for equities. He's the one who gave me Toys R Us. The secret of his success is that he never went to business school. Imagine all the lessons he'd never have to unlearn. George Soros and Jimmy Rogers made their millions by taking esoteric positions I couldn't begin to explain. Shorting gold, buying puts, hedging Australian bonds, and Warren Buffett, the greatest investor of them all, looks for the same sorts of opportunities I do, except that when he finds them, he buys the whole company. The notable exceptions are entirely outnumbered by the run-of-the-mill fund managers, dull fund managers, comatose fund managers, sycophantic fund managers, timid fund managers, plus the other assorted camp followers, fuddy-duddies, and copycats hemmed by the rules. You have to understand the minds of the people in our business. We all read the same newspapers and magazines and listen to the same economists. We're a very homogeneous lot. Quite frankly, there aren't many among us who have walked in off the beach. If there are any high school dropouts running an equity mutual fund, I'd be surprised. I doubt there are any ex-surfers or former truckers either. You won't find many well-scrubbed adolescents in our ranks. My wife once did some research into the popular theory that great inventions and great ideas come from people before they reach 30. On the other hand, since I'm now 45 and still running Fidelity Magellan, I'm I'm eager to report that great investing has nothing to do with youth, and that the middle-aged investor who has lived through several kinds of markets may have an advantage over the youngster who hasn't. Nevertheless, with the vast majority of fund managers being middle-aged, it cuts out all the potential genius on the earlier and later trends of the geriatric spectrum. And that'll be everything for today. You know, it's a good day. I, t- I did very well on my midterms, and I just wanted to pop the update. You know, have a good one. I can't stop the recording with my hotkeys. My hotkeys, guys. My hotkeys. Shit.